All right, well, this weekend marks the unofficial start of summer here in the U.S. with the Memorial Day holiday, and we're coming off the highest TSA throughput that we've seen since the pandemic began. Joining us now to talk about the outlook for the airline industry in this environment is Helane Becker. She's a senior analyst over at Cowen. Helane, let's start with that data that we got from TSA on throughput. I think it was 1.86 million passengers through checkpoints over the weekend. Where do you think that we're going to get to 2019 levels before this summer is out, or is some of that international travel just maybe going to keep us below, where we were just before the pandemic?
I think it's going to be difficult for us to get back to 2019 without some international and business traffic coming back. So yes, to your question, we think this weekend from Thursday to Tuesday, we'll see between 10 and 11 million, maybe 12 million people traveling. Most of that is domestic and near international, like the Caribbean, Mexico, Latin America. Europe is starting to open, but a lot of Americans have already made their summer plans, and they're not going to cancel Hawaii or Alaska or wherever they're going in an effort to go to Europe as it opens, because it's opening late. And if you're planning to go away, you probably already made your plans. And that said, I think we know Greece is open, as is Iceland and Croatia. Italy is open if you're vaccinated and willing to test pre-taking off and once you land. And then, of course, you have to test to come back into the U.S. But that's not a big problem. I think the issue is, will France open? Portugal, Spain is opening as well. And how many Americans will travel there, given that we think a lot of them have already made plans for the summer.
Helane, how much will ticket prices be up this summer, and which airline do you think is going to get aggressive in terms of pricing?
I don't know the answer to the first part of the question yet. We have seen fares go up and trend higher depending on the market, but we're also still seeing a lot of promotional fares, $29, $39, $59 fares out there. So, but that's probably for days of the week that you might not want to travel, or to encourage people to travel days of the week that are normally off peak, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. So we're definitely thinking fares are going to trend higher, but right now I don't have a specific number. I think we're thinking yields overall will probably be up on a year over two basis, somewhere in the 3 or 4% range. But as the year goes on and more capacity comes back in, you have like this, catch 22, I think. You have demand goes up, so capacity comes back in, or demand goes up, fares go up, capacity comes, fares go down, and so on. And so it's like a big circle until you get back to 2019 capacity, which we don't think will happen before 2023. And then as far as the airlines that are best positioned, I think right now we think the domestic U.S. airlines like Spirit, Allegiant, Frontier are places, Southwest, because of their big domestic component. And then I would say American has a big domestic component. They're 65%, pre-pandemic 65%. Domestic, 35% international. And then if you want to play international recovery, you would own United, because they're 50% domestic, 50% international, and they'll benefit if we're wrong and international comes back faster than we think. United is the one that benefits the most.
Helane, it's Julie here. Following on your comments about international, I do want to ask about the situation with the Ryanair jet, of course, over the weekend, where it was detained in Minsk in Belarus, and someone was effectively kidnapped off the plane, detained by the Belarusian authorities. It seems like that would have a fairly limited effect on international travel in Europe, but I just wonder how you're viewing that incident, and if you think it's going to have any kind of broader effect.
Thanks, Julie, for the question. I don't know the answer. I mean, I find it frightening that the aircraft would be forced down and that a passenger would be forcibly removed. To my knowledge, something like this has never happened before, other than a passenger hijacking a plane. I mean, that's happened before too often, but I don't even know how to think about this other than I find it really scary. I'm glad that the Ryanair pilots were able to safely land the aircraft, and I'm glad that I think there were 170-ish people on board with crew members, that everybody was safe. I'm fearful, obviously, for the man who was arrested. I don't think, this is probably a better question for people who are smarter than me when it comes to aviation law, but I think the whole thing is very scary.
And Helane, just to finish up, coming back to the U.S. And thinking about, the major airlines here and some of the smaller groups we've talked about. A year ago, this was an industry that was basically had no visibility on how it was going to run a decent business going forward. There was, I don't know if the bailout had come through yet or what the terms and conditions would be, but life support is a fair way to characterize the airlines in May of 2020. When you think about it, May of 2021, what does the industry look like over the next 3 to 5 years? Has it been energized by this kind of near-death experience, or will we revert to some of the trends that had been predominating kind of in the later half of the 2010s?
Yeah, I think we're going to see. Look, people like to travel. That's the thing that they like to do more than a lot of other things. Just planning trips gives you hope. It's very exciting and so on. So here's how I'm thinking about it. I think domestic will continue to grow, leisure especially. A lot of millennials got used to traveling with their parents and they want to travel on their own. A lot of folks, I hear the birth rate was down last year. I hear a lot of people postponed having kids so they could kind of resume their travel when we're able to. So I think you're going to see, travel resume on the leisure side for sure. I think for business traffic, you're going to see business traffic come back. It may not come back 100%. Instead of going to, 6 conferences in a year, maybe you'll go to 4. Instead of 5 people going to the conference, maybe 3 will go. If you're working from anywhere and your corporate office is across country or somewhere not where you're living, at some point you're going to have to visit your corporate offices, so there may be even more business travel. That's how we're thinking about that. And then, of course, international. Everybody has their bucket list of places that they want to go to before they can't travel anymore. So I think you're going to see international travel start to come back. We're expecting 2023 for sure revenues to be equal to or greater than 2019. And what we've said is, if we're wrong, the possibility would be that 2023 revenues and earnings are done in 2022. And, you see it in the numbers. You highlighted at the top as we started our chat, 1.8 million people traveled yesterday through TSA checkpoints. We're thinking that that's what we're going to see, around 1.8 million every day. The other roughly 1.5 million that we'd be missing would be 750,000 business and 750,000 international. And we think about 150,000 to 200,000 of the number now is international, and about 350 is business because of just the percentage declines that we know the airlines are reporting. So I definitely think that over the next couple of years, we're going to get back to 2019 levels, and we're going to be stronger. And the other thing that we haven't really talked a lot about is the level of aircraft retirements we saw last year, especially older, smaller aircraft. And we're seeing a shift to newer, larger aircraft, which means we might have fewer departures per day, which would also argue for higher prices, which, I didn't mention before. But we will definitely see, aircraft being delivered beginning in 2022 again. And load factors, Southwest last week said that they're back to an 85% load factor for May and forecasting the same for June. That's pre-pandemic levels, and admittedly on less capacity, but the MAX is coming back for them. That's a big part of their growth. And we think that we're going to have some really good years from probably mid-2022 through at least 2026 or 7. So we're pretty excited about what the future holds for the airlines. As far as, a year ago, the U.S. government made a wise decision in helping to support the airlines through the payroll support program because the industry is in a position where it can recover quickly. It wouldn't have been able to had the support not been there. They would have had to furlough employees, and it takes about a year to retrain a pilot off of furlough. So that would have meant that we couldn't have recovered as fast. And don't forget, the airline industry has been very instrumental, FedEx, UPS for sure, but also the U.S. passenger airline industry in getting vaccine out to rural communities. Alaska Air's handled the whole rural community in Alaska, and Hawaiian has been able to deliver around Hawaii. So, think about how fast this country is recovering, even though we talk about vaccine not being, not everybody not getting it as fast as we want. We're still on the leading edge of countries with population that's been vaccinated. So that's been because the U.S. airline industry has been instrumental in helping. And I think that's really important for people to think about when they say the government shouldn't have supported the industry. We wouldn't have recovered as fast as we're recovering without that.
A few things that I've said on Twitter got people more rankled than when I said it was good that the government came in and supported the airline industry. So glad that we're simpatico.
I get that too.
Because, yeah, I mean the liquidationists out there, they have their own view, but I guess we'll save those arguments for the next crisis, whenever that may come upon us. All right, Helane Becker, Senior Research Analyst with Cowen. Helane, always appreciate the time. Thanks so much for jumping on this morning.